After I recently started playing League of Legends again and lost about 20 ranked games in a row, I came to the conclusion that I really like old school RuneScape because that game is actually fun. And unlike League of Legends, our game is actually being still developed. Kriibus, what do you mean by that? Well, thank you so much for asking. Let me explain. But before I do that, a word from our lovely sponsor, Factor. Have you ever thought, how does a perfect meal taste like? Well, say no more. I got the right solution just for you. Let me introduce you to Factor, who offers hassle-free, ready-to-eat, healthy, delicious meals right at your doorstep. Factor premium meals are prepared by only the best chefs available, and not only that, they're also approved by dietitians to offer you the best nutritional quality you can get. And the best part is, you don't need to prepare anything. Just heat up your meal and enjoy it in a matter of minutes. Factor has options for everyone. Whether you are on a keto diet, looking to save on calories, you're vegan, or you want full protein diets. And it has so much more. Whatever your eating habits are, Factor can fulfill them. And even more, if you don't know what your preference is, if you order your meals from Factor, they also offer free nutrition coaching sessions just for you. And if ready-to-made meals isn't the only thing you're looking for, Factor also offers multiple add-ons like side dishes, smoothies, shakes, and even desserts. The choice is yours. So what are you waiting for? Try out Factor right now with the link in the description for a special discount, or use the code FACTORSE43261. And I promise you that the eating habits you had so far will drastically change for the better. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring this video. Thank you again to Factor for sponsoring this video. You see, over the years, Jagex had this philosophy to work on one area of the map at a time. We saw that back in 2016 when Seiya was released. I mean, if you look at the very first Seiya map right now, when it came out, it looks pretty atrocious. There's not a lot going on. No winter dot, no raids, no farming guild, and the existing parts that were bumped out on release were mostly just empty landscape. But throughout years, our lovely developers had the time to chisel Seiya into a lovely existing landscape that we see today, and it looks absolutely awesome. There's so many activities you can currently do that essentially if you created a character that can only exist in Seiya, you would in most cases actually have a fully developed game. You can train all skills, you can do endgame content like raids, minigames, spellbooks, quests, and most importantly, sand crabs, where dreams go to die. In fact, there actually is a lot of series on YouTube where players just lock themselves into the land of Seiya, or even parts of Seiya, and try to reach for their goals. And not only that, Jagex was so confident in their approach to Seiya that they developed an entire league called the Twisted League that lasted for 2 months, and it was the first ever temporary game mode of its kind, which locked all players to only the land of Seiya. So it's safe to say that developing Seiya for years and years as a project finally paid off. And you know what else is gonna pay off? If you subscribe to this channel, because I promise you the content is never gonna run out. Thank you so much. Okay, so that wasn't the only part of Kill and Not Jagex has worked on. After they were done with Seiya, the players and the developers came together and looked for improvements elsewhere. And the number one candidate for improvements became pretty clear after the end of Leagues 2, when everyone realized how empty and barren the desert area is. It was before the Trailblazer League even started, when the developers had to artificially increase the point range on the desert area so people would actually pick the desert option rather than something like Ascarnia with tons of things to do like the God Wars dungeon, or an area like Fremennik with multitude of bosses like the Dagonet Kings and War Gods, because unfortunately, besides the ancient spellbook, there really wasn't anything going on in the desert. So the developers got to work. First, they released a new minigame, Temporos, that includes everything to do with fishing. Then came another minigame called the Giant's Foundry with its own questline. Then PvP Arena was added along with another quest that introduces Guardians of the Rift, updates to the Smoke Dungeon, and small benefits for Slayer. And then we ended off with Dooms of a Mascot, which is widely considered one of the best raids by popularity alone. Just by completions alone, if you look at current rate, there is over 11 million times plus completed raids. And furthermore, there's been over 24 million attempts, and that just goes to show you how successfully it brought back the desert. Not only that, Jagex is planning to end the development of Desert with the most anticipated update of this year, Desert Treasure 2, a questline that brings in new weapons, prayers, items, and so much more. And when that update comes out, I think players can finally say that Desert feels alive again, which means job well done. So, what's next? We're gonna get Desert Treasure 2 at the end of summer and complete that part of the map. But where are we gonna look afterwards? Well, I guess since you already read the title of this video, you know the answer. But it's actually not as simple as it looks. You see, the history of Wilderness has actually been quite one of a kind. People that have recently started playing don't even remember that PvP used to be the main attraction of RuneScape. The Wilderness stage from start to finish was filled with players. When you stepped over that edge, you better make sure you come prepared, because you're not only gonna meet like 1 or 2 people, every world has clans in it, and every clan controls their world. It was an entire economy built up where players themselves hosted tournaments with cash prizes for PvP. There was a deep competitive vibe between clans like you see with most popular esports nowadays. And it's safe to say that the Wilderness was the most popular place in the game. But without diving too much into it, everything changed when Jagex greedy corporate overlords attacked us, and since then it's never been the same. A big part of that is because the newer generation of players are so far behind from the people that have learned PvP for years now, which gives them zero incentive to participate. Nobody wants to go in knowing you're gonna lose, but the good thing is, Jagex is on their way to fix that. And it's actually been going on for a while now, if you noticed. Firstly, Jagex brought in a well-beloved and one of the best PvP players in the game, Manked. He won the Golden Gnome for being the best new streamer in 2017. On the same year, he also won the Deadman tournament, and the year afterwards he won the All-Star PvP tournament after going 15-0 win streak. So if there was anyone who is familiar with the Wilderness and knows everything about it, it's him. And now is working with Jagex to bring the Wilderness back to life. Not only that, just this year we had a multitude of updates to the Wilderness, like the Wilderness bosses reworks and the Bounty Hunter. But you see, all of them have one problem though. How is that supposed to help new players get adjusted with the Wilderness? One of my best friends who never goes to the Wilderness said this: "No matter how many times they flood the Wilderness with updates, I still don't want to go there, because the idea that someone who has done PvP for 15 years can just come in and send me to Lumbridge is unappealing to me." Now, one of the fixes for this could be making PvP optional. You can turn it off in settings and the other players can't attack you anymore. And this will come with a cost or a penalty, like decreased drop rates. Maybe you have to pay money every time you enter the Wilderness. Maybe something random like monster spawns next to you that only attacks players that have the PvP option turned off. The idea is still to make Wilderness this dangerous place that you should look out for, but at the same time get over the anxiety of getting blasted by other players. And in fact, this has already been implemented in RS3. They made the option to turn off PvP, and in return they filled the Wilderness with new dangerous activities like new bosses, and even a random event that from time to time just blasts you like 90% of your hit points to still keep that dangerous feel that the Wilderness brings. Now, of course, it's not perfect, but it's extremely difficult to get the Wilderness right. Nobody has a solution that fits everyone. Or maybe they do. You see, Jagex has been actually trying to develop the Wilderness for years now, but it just never came to life. It all started almost 2 years ago with this picture. The extension to already existing Wilderness, which has the very first Wilderness quest, new bosses, new training areas for Hunter, and the very first world boss, which has 60,000 hit points. Then the idea was worked on even further 6 months later. This time it was a more detailed outcome on the fights or the activities that you actually have to do, how the bosses would look, what's the storylines on the quest, and so much more. Also, this time they were thinking, let's not just expand the Wilderness deeper, Let's also bring the smaller wilderness levels alive with more bosses and even an option for players to learn the basic PvP skills through a boss, like switching gear, movements, prayers, and so much more. And then a few months ago, the idea was even more updated. This time the focus was bringing alive the already existing content, like making the wilderness agility a desired place to train, bringing in wilderness only glue scrolls that have their unique drop table, reworking the other wilderness bosses like the Scorpia or the crazy archaeologist. And through these 3 pictures you just saw, I think we have a pretty good understanding of what the wilderness might be. It's still this dangerous area of the map, but the idea is to make it worth your time. Now the only question we have to ask ourselves, when are we all gonna see this actually in game, if ever? And the answer is most likely next year, if I had to guess. There also might be a scenario when none of this enters the game, but considering Jagex has been trying to bring the wilderness alive for years now, with even bringing in new employees who are only working on the wilderness, I don't think we're gonna stop here. And the news for updates might just come sooner rather than later, because in PvP Feedback Discord server, Mod Goblin announced that they are actually planning to announce something big very soon. So we'll have to look out for that. So what do you think? If all of these possibilities would open up, would you consider participating in these wilderness events, or is the place just not for you? Whatever the case though, we know that the wilderness is likely gonna get a massive overhaul in the upcoming years, and it might just be the next big project. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, and I thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you all tomorrow with another one. Bye. You know what we need? Leagues 4. Yeah, we need Leagues 4. Yeah.